Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 8 of the Hub World podcast. It's been a while, but we're back, ready
Oh
to
yeah.
talk about everybody's favorite massive media movie franchise.
The DCEU.
No, get out.
As much as I
Um,
want to believe that, it's not.
yeah, we're gonna lose viewers just by saying that, but we'll be talking about the MCU today. Talk a little bit about how WandaVision went, which means full spoilers for WandaVision. Probably don't listen if you haven't finished the show, as we're going to be dropping heavy spoilers, as well as like the implications of WandaVision on the future of the MCU, as well as just in general the upcoming slate of TV shows and projects and what we'd like to see, what we think might happen, etc., etc. So, I am Jules from the Hub World.
I am Matteo from the Hub World.
And I'm Gino from the Hub World.
Welcome,
Yeah, it's
everybody. So, we will begin, as always, with an icebreaker. And the icebreaker today is, what was your favorite movie from the MCU and why?
ooh.
I will start. Um, my favorite movie in the MCU is. I don't think it's gonna be that surprising. It's I think regarded as one of the best one in the MCU, and that for me is Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Um, that movie, uh, like it was a thriller from beginning to end, and the implications it had on the MCU as a whole were were massive, and I wasn't expecting that going into the movie. And I just remember the that moment where the moment where Shield basically collapses. That was like a mind blowing moment to me, and the Winter Soldier was like super in tight. Like I knew who the Winter Soldier was. I was familiar with all the background lore, but like, I kind of had an expectation going into the movie, but the whole stuff surrounding Shield was just super mind blowing to me, and also the fact that like it's probably one of the more serious movies in the MCU. There's not a lot of jokey humor. Like I don't like a lot of them the that just overtly comedic, cheesy humor that the MCU is like cramming in all their movies now. And I know that's a super hot take, but like that's why I don't like movies like Thor Ragnarok or Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, but like I like the groundedness and this serious, or not serious, but like it's just super like realistic and take that they have in Captain America's world. And Captain America is probably my favorite protagonist in the MCU if you don't count like Daredevil, but I don't know. I'll probably talk about Daredevil later, but yeah, my pick is Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Hmm. I think I want to go next. Just because honestly depends on like what day you ask me. It's a bit of a toss up. For my number one, I personally like the first Cap movie just because I thought it was a really well done, like kind of like almost period piece. I want to say because like you're set in World War II and just like how Steve Rogers goes from like this scrawny kid into basically becoming the perfect super soldier, and it kind of sets everything else up for the rest of the MCU because okay, you had Hulk, which was a failed Captain America, super soldier set up, and then there was like a few other ones where like they were trying to like constantly be like trying to replicate what made Cap special, but I'm gonna have to go with Doctor Strange actually today, just because it's one of those things where like I knew who Cap was, I was kind of aware of his story and things beforehand, and I honestly did not know who Stephen Strange was before like they were starting to talk about like, oh, Benedict Cumberbatch is gonna be coming in to be Stephen Strange, and I'm like, who the heck is that? So I went in virtually like blind to the character, and instantly thought that this was like, hey, this is a really great take, because I felt like it really wasn't a superhero movie in the same sense, where it's like, okay, here's this dude or here's this person that has like these amazing abilities. There weren't really like aliens or amazing feats of strength. It was just like, okay, here's this regular person, and it became kind of like a wizard or a magic movie. It was like, it was fantasy, but like grounded in a kind of like, almost kind of like how Harry Potter is, like where it's just like, okay, here's this like secret magical society that's been with us this entire time, and I don't know, I just really really liked that kind of aspect of it, and
Special
Benedict
effects
Cumberbatch's
in that
performance.
movie were amazing too.
Oh,
Like
it was great. I was not expecting any of like those kaleidoscope kind of things to really like, I don't know, it was just something about it. It was just, I really really enjoyed that movie, and like the time loop, how he solves the problem, and it's like, uh I
With the
enjoyed that
villain
movie.
being the crusty-eyed bandit.
the Crusty-Eyed Bandit. Totally forgot about that. It was erased from my mind for the longest time. It's referring to Mads Mikkelsen, by the way, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember his name. I just refer to him as the crusty-eyed bandit.
But yeah, like I thoroughly enjoyed that, and like where it's setting up, and especially now with like the Doctor Strange 2 hype going around just like after the end of WandaVision. And we'll talk about this later on. I'm really hyped for it. But and
Yeah.
because of WandaVision, I'm excited for Doctor Strange. That's gonna be my choice.
Yeah, I like one of the things I always appreciate about Doctor Strange is that it took its time with setting up its characters, and I liked how Mordo like also had his journey in Doctor Strange, and like they didn't rush his character, and like I'm sure he's gonna play a bigger role moving forward as like an antagonist. But I'm
Yeah.
glad that they didn't like rush his story and just like make him the villain right away.
Yeah.
It's a
I
good
feel
choice.
like, yeah. I feel like that's kind of what, like, I guess it's kind of like for instance like my love of like Green Lantern and all that stuff. I really like Mordo's character as well, because he's kind of like a mentor for the majority of it, kind of like how Sinestro was to
Mm-hmm.
Hal,
To
right?
hell.
And
Yeah, it's
then
more of a
you see,
philosophical clash.
yeah, and then like it's not really a corruption, but it's just a difference of opinion.
Yeah, agreed. I
Yeah.
like it. Um, I don't even know how to answer the question, to be honest. Usually I say Captain America: The Winter Soldier's the best one, but the thing with that movie is that the more and more I rewatch the MCU, the less and less that movie is my favorite, because I think ultimately that movie relied on its big twists to carry it, and on rewatches it's significantly less exciting knowing what happens. I still think it's a super quality film, probably still top 5, but I don't know if it's my favorite anymore. um
And that's my
I'm
thing. Like I've only rewatched it 2 or 3 times, but for me, like the fight scenes are always gonna be that good.
The
And like
elevator
just
scene is great. What are you
that,
talking about?
yeah. Well, yeah, but I totally get that viewpoint though.
Yeah.
it's
Well, like
hard because like I
well, even with the hype up to that movie, right? Like you were watching all this stuff being prepared in Shield as well, like the Shield show, right?
Yeah, that shows.
but that's what made it, like that's what made the twist so big, is because like the show was in such an early, or sorry, the universe was in such an early state, and they just started up the Shield show, and then like second movie in the slate, they're like, yeah, Shield's done, and it's like, whoa, like that, it was like a big, like it was a big deal, and that, like, I appreciated those plot points. I just like looking back on it now and rewatching it, it's not like, I do feel like those twists are ultimately what made it good, and the novelty of them wearing off at this point pulls that film off of the top for me. And I'm trying to think what my favorite is. See, the thing is, most of my favorite characters in the MCU right now don't have their own film. and so it's hard to pinpoint what my favorite movie is. I love Captain America. I love the first Avenger. I love Winter Soldier. I love Civil War, but I wouldn't call any of them my favorite. I want to say one of the Spider-Mans, but at the same time, I don't think one of the Spider-Mans is my favorite, although I really like those movies. And I guess I'm just going to go with a very vanilla answer, which is right now, when I think about, because I'm going to rewatch the MCU, and I think about which movie am I most excited to watch again, it's definitely Avengers Endgame. And I know that's such a basic answer.
I wouldn't call it basic. It's a celebration
so
of everything
basic.
that they've done.
It's just it hit all. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like it wasn't just the culmination of this giant story. It was also just they did it so well. They had so many good
Yeah.
moments. Like I think using the time travel as a way, like as a means to like revisit moments, to like tie up Tony and Steve's stories. The comedy was good. Reliving, like, my favorite moment in that movie by far is when Cap walks into the elevator, and it's the same elevator scene where he has to like beat up all the Hydra agents from Winter Soldier. That was like such a big scene, and he gets out of it by just like shaking the guy's hand and saying "Hail Hydra," and I thought it was so funny. So I'm like, how brilliant! Like, just like there's just those moments in that film that I think are just like really well done. And just like seeing all these characters come together for a second time, but like in Infinity War, a lot of them weren't together, and you didn't have a giant like battle scene. Even just the twist of like Thanos being killed right at the beginning, and like I don't know, like that movie had a lot. That movie was like, I think a lot of people were like, how are they gonna like follow Infinity War, and they definitely did. I think it one-upped it in every way. And it was such a satisfying conclusion. And I think this is a good segue. Much like Endgame was a very satisfying conclusion to the MCU as we knew up till then, and like there was a lot of worry about what comes next now. I think WandaVision kicking off Phase 4 and the next chapter of the MCU, personally, I think it did a pretty stellar job. And it's made me interested in MCU content moving forward. Like, I'm definitely curious where they're going.
Well, I kind of thing is, I agree and disagree with that because yes, okay, like okay, actually, I agree with everything you said, but at the same time, I feel like um, I personally got way too hyped for WandaVision based on the like what's like Endgame. Endgame came out. Everyone was super positive after that movie. It was really exciting time. And then now since it's been over a year since anything and like Marvel's come out until WandaVision, I feel like that show had an impossible task to live up to the hype for me. And that's like that's one of the few things I'm lukewarm about of the show. Like I do not understand like this praise that WandaVision is getting. I agree with people. I think it was a great show, but I don't think it was like unreal, like amazing. Like some people are calling it like if you boil the show down to like a 4 hour movie, people say, "Oh, that's like a top tier Marvel movie," and I kind of don't agree with that at all. But I'll save that little bit for later.
Yeah, well, like
I,
we'll definitely be talking about that when it's time for it, right?
mhm.
So,
Yeah, well, we're going to talk about WandaVision now. I think we moved into it.
is that what we're talking about now?
Yeah, no, I think we've
Yeah.
segued into it. And like,
Oh, okay, yeah.
one thing I will say, like, kind of like to kind of kick it off, like I'm sure we're going to overview and talk about it, but this was something I was talking about with my students today because we talked a bit about WandaVision, and because like the general consensus I've gotten online and like even from some of my students was that the show was really good, but they were like kind of similar to what like Matteo was um suggesting, is like kind of lukewarm about the ending, a little bit disappointed, um not sure how they feel, and ultimately my take on it is that I think viewers need to take a step back and recognize the context of which we absorb this show, because for the last, how long has the MCU been around? 2007?
2008, I think.
2008, like almost 15 years. For the last 15 years, we've been used to absorbing the content of this universe in a particular way, which was every time we get new story content, there's like something big is happening. And I think we've been conditioned to feel that way, because I think everybody was feeling like between every episode that had to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then because the finale wasn't as big or didn't have as many implications as they had hoped on the whole universe, I think people were feeling really disappointed. But I think ultimately we have to take a step back and recognize that this was just one story. It wasn't 10 stories. And to expect every single episode to deliver the level of content that a single MCU film would deliver is unreasonable, as well as this is the first TV project they've ever released. And to think that they would make major decisions for this universe that has been primarily film only in a television show at this point, I think is expecting too much. Because I
Well,
think there's
actually,
still.
this is the whole thing that we can. This is actually really disappointing. Kevin Feige actually talked before I think it was a day or two before the finale came out, and someone just point blank asked him, if I don't watch the TV shows, is there anything like, am I gonna understand? Or sorry, uh, if I, yeah, if I watch the movies without watching the show, will there be stuff that I miss? And he basically said, no, the movies are gonna address everything. So like, he kind of like said that you don't need to watch all the shows
But that's
in
what I
order to get
mean.
the plots of the movies.
But that's
And
what
I
I
feel
mean.
like that kind of like makes the shows seem less important and makes it seem now that like going down, they have all these shows announced. Nothing major is going to happen in these shows that are going to be worth like being excited about.
But it's not that nothing major is going to happen. And I think that's what people need to understand, is he's not saying that nothing is important in these shows. What he's saying is the films themselves are not going to rely so heavily on what happens in the shows that if you don't watch the shows, you're not going to understand the film. Like, sure, you're probably not going to understand, like, moving forward into like Doctor Strange 2, for example. If you didn't watch WandaVision, you probably won't understand Wanda's mind state. You probably won't understand her motivations. You probably won't connect with the character and understand her lore and history the way that somebody who watched the show did. But in terms of the plot for Doctor Strange 2, you're not going to be confused if you didn't watch WandaVision, which, considering how MCU has been formatted up until now, has been the case, right? Like, they've always made the films very self-contained, where like even if you missed a few, they explain things well enough in the film that it's okay. They kind of like fill in the general gaps for you. Like, you could go watch Avengers Infinity War without watching half of the movies that came before and still have a general idea of the plot of that film. Like, you're not going in completely confused, because they do enough, like the plot does enough to like catch you up on like what's going on. You're still missing things, of course you're going to miss things, but like you don't need those to fully understand the plot of that film. And I think that's what he's saying. He's saying like, you can still watch Doctor Strange 2 without watching WandaVision, and you'll still understand Doctor Strange 2. But of course, you're going to be missing out on information. You're always going to be. But I do think ultimately, like, the TV shows are going to be less important than the films. The films are going to be the major stories, right? And the TV shows are going to
Yeah.
be supplementary. And at least for now, that might change like moving forward depending on how well Disney Plus does. But what I was saying was like, because this is the first TV show, I think expecting that there were going to be major implications in this TV show was a little bit too much. Like even like because I thought there was going to be major implications, and like looking back, I'm like, yeah, maybe it was too much for me to think that a major event would happen in this show, considering ultimately this was a test. These first few shows are tests. If they do poorly, like if these shows had done poorly, if they had all bombed, it's very likely like they would have just gone back to just doing films and doing less TV projects. Whereas since WandaVision was such a success, they're probably going to do more, and they might even put more importance into the TV shows, right?
Yeah. Well, they can
And
tell a
just like,
more complicated story that sticks with the characters for a longer period of time, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, would I
Now-
rather have had Civil War as a show? Heck yes.
But a very high budget show.
Yeah,
well,
that would've been-
I
that-
think
that-
they spent like 80 million an episode or something like that on WandaVision. So like they're pouring money into these shows. They're not
Yeah.
afraid to do that. Even though I'm like watching some of the in the later episodes of WandaVision, I'm like the CG was kind of iffy, especially in the last 2 episodes. But
I thought it was pretty good. Yeah, of course it wasn't perfect, but it wasn't
yeah,
bad.
but my only thing, like I kind of feel like, and like you know how going into some of the episodes, like the actors would do interviews or like people do interviews. Like I feel like they're like um Elizabeth Olsen said there's going to be like a Luke Skywalker, spoilers for Mandalorian, a Luke Skywalker level cameo or a event in WandaVision, and to me that never happened. Like I don't know what the heck she was talking about. And Paul Bettany said there's going to be what was the quote he said?
He said that there's a cameo. There's an actor who's making a cameo appearance in the season, and it's an actor who he's always wanted to work with, and when he has scenes with him, and they had amazing chemistry. It was almost uncanny how much chemistry they had together.
Yeah, I get that's a joke, and he was referring to himself, but some people, like tabloids will just say they won't talk about the last part of that quote. They'll only talk about the beginning where they said there's going to be a cameo of an actor he's always wanted to work with or something like that. And I feel like the actors saying things like this that could be misconstrued or misunderstood. It adds like unfair expectations on the show that permanently kind of lessen it.
But is that
like we all thought Doctor Strange was going to be in the show? Like why are the actors saying these things if like they potentially can't deliver on it? Like that's my only thing.
But like, is that?
I didn't really find that to be like a big issue though. Like
yeah,
there was
that would have made the finale. That honestly probably would have if
there was a cameo though. There was no, not a cameo. Sorry, there was a reference to the original Doctor Strange movie though. Like, wasn't the book? Isn't like that demon book that she's reading? Wasn't that the missing one from Doctor Strange? Like in the library, there was one book that was missing.
No.
Oh, maybe. I don't know, but it's
I heard
book,
like
that book.
Yeah, like I heard people talking about it. And it was like,
that book actually was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I don't think it looks completely different. Like
it doesn't matter that it looks completely different.
Yeah, they're not
in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It says that the book changes form.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's not. That doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And but there's another connection with There's a connection with Doctor Strange because some people speculate that in the post credit scene or like the final one, she's in
she's in her astral state.
Astral form.
Yeah. So there's that at least, but I don't know. Like I feel like I'm begging on it a lot, but like I did enjoy WandaVision. Like we stayed up as soon as until like we would watch the episode as soon as it dropped at midnight, and it was
Yeah,
always
and I had
something like I was looking forward to
and I had work
watch.
at like 8 in the morning the next day,
Yeah.
so like I was pretty much dead at work, but
Yeah.
I still enjoyed it.
And I did the
Like,
same thing, right? Like I had late days at work and I would stay up anyway. Um and like just to kind of address what you said before though, Matteo, I don't think that's on the actors. I think that's completely on the fan base. I think if fans want to take every little interview and make it into something they like they want to interpret it the way they want, I don't think that's on the actors. Um and I don't think they said anything untruthful. Like I I get Paul Bettany's thing was a joke. And like he even admitted it. Like him and the director of the show both, like the director of the show said like, yeah, Paul Bettany dug himself a hole, which I'm going to let him dig himself out of. And Paul Bettany later was like, yeah, like I said it thinking it was funny, and then once I started to see people speculate, I realized I made a really bad decision because people were going to get upset, but he couldn't really do anything about it at that point. And like that's the thing is like at the end of the day, these actors are people too, and they have to promote their show. And if they have to worry about every little thing they say causing massive speculation in the fan base, like all and that's ultimately what I don't like about TV shows, especially ones that are dropped week to week, is that speculation really kills people's ability to enjoy things. Because if WandaVision was released all at once and people could have binged it, or if it was released as a film, I guarantee nobody would have complained about that ending. Nobody. The only reason they were complaining was because of the week to week constant speculation, constant what does this mean? What does this mean? Could it mean this? Could it mean that? Could it mean this? And wanting something bigger out of something that wasn't meant to be as big as they thought, right? Like I don't know.
that's just yeah, it's one of those like damned if you do something, damned if you don't kind of situations, right? Like they want to promote, they want people to speculate, they want people to talk about it because it generates hype and interest, but if it doesn't go anywhere, you look stupid later on, right?
Yeah. And I think it's just the show set out what it was supposed to do. It
Oh
was
yeah, it
never a
totally did its
story.
job.
It was a story that people thought was going to be about one thing, and I think they marketed it that way. I think telling us that Wanda was going to be in Doctor Strange, and we know Doctor Strange was a multiverse story, and we knew Wanda was like creating stuff with her magic right now, and then even just like bringing in Evan Peters. Like I think they wanted us to feel like this
God,
story.
I have stuff
Yeah,
to
we'll
talk
talk about
about
it. We'll
Evan
talk about that.
Peters,
Don't
man.
worry, we'll talk about that. But I
Yeah.
think they intentionally made us feel like this story was going to be this big plot, like world story, but it wasn't. It was actually at the heart of it. It was just a story about Wanda overcoming her grief. That's it. That's the whole story. The whole story is Wanda cannot move on, and in the end, she has to give up her family and recognize that that chapter of her life is over.
Yeah.
And like that's a good
But
story to tell, and that would never have been done in the movies. And like that's why the
I still like
shows can be used, and the shows are like that's a great reason for these shows to exist.
Mhm.
So,
but I feel like she still didn't learn that lesson.
well,
Because what is
based
she
on the
doing at
post-credit scene, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
she didn't learn her lesson at the end of the day. She's still flipping through the books trying to make her like imaginary kids come back.
But that's the thing is I don't think that's what the post credit was implying. I think the post
Well, you
credit
hear
was
the kids crying out for help.
but that's what I mean is she gave them up, right? Like she's like I created these things. I can't create illusions anymore. I can't be lying to myself, and she gives it all up. But even after giving it up, she can hear her kids, like because her kids are still. That's the thing. It's like Vision and like Agatha Harkness and stuff didn't realize it, but those kids were not part of the hex. She like
Yeah.
actually manifested those kids, and now those kids are trapped somewhere. And so she did give them up, but now she's realizing like I didn't give up they weren't illusions like I thought they were, and now I need to find a way to rescue them because she can hear her kid calling out to her, and now she's like, well, where are they? So she did give them up. She still went through that character progression of being like, I shouldn't hold on to things that are lost. But now what she's realizing in the post credit is that, well, this thing isn't lost. They're actually still out there. And so now that's her next arc.
Or it could be some darkness that's out there lying to her, causing her to read the
Could
book.
be.
Right? Because she's
Well-
this, like, according to the show, she's the Scarlet Witch, this like embodiment of pure chaos. Basically, it's going to bring about the end of the world if left unchecked, right? And if exploring her dark powers, that might lead to something. How and what's the best way to exploit someone with
Of
things
course.
that they care about, with love, right?
Of course. But like it doesn't change the fact that like I don't think it undoes the ending. Like I think it's still, the ending is still sound. It shows you the extent to which she would go for her family.
I didn't say that it undid it. I just said that she didn't learn her lesson.
I think they were different things though, right? Like I think
Yeah.
the difference is being like, because she didn't go to like, she didn't try to save Vision. Like she did all this stuff unknowingly, right? And then she just couldn't give it up, but she did give it up. Whereas this is like, she has like clear evidence that her family is there, because that she can feel them, right? Like when she went to feel Vision's body, she could tell, no, he's gone. Like I can't do anything about it. Whereas with her kids, she's like literally feeling them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Her costume though, so good.
Oh, yeah, the costume was really good. They did a good job with it.
Now, do you guys all like so do you want to go like talk about stuff that we did like about the show now instead of bagging on like
there was
the
there
last
was one.
big-
There,
no
there is
because I have
one-
one last negative thing I want to say, and then I want to start talking about more
all the good
positive
things that they did.
that I really liked about the show. But like the last thing I had a problem was just the way Marvel branded the show as like these WandaVision, as Spider-Man 3 and Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness are like it's a 3-movie multiverse arc and all that. And
Well, they didn't
I
say it
was
was a multiverse arc. They just said it was
well, like there was
they
the
were all part of the same story.
yeah, but like we didn't get anything multiverse in that show until like the very end, and it was just like a crumb. Right?
Did we even get any multiverse stuff?
we there's if you examine the book, apparently like when she has the book open, like it shows something that I don't know, because I'm not too into Marvel comics or anything like that, but like the book is has a reference to the greater multiverse, but that's it.
I wouldn't take that at face value though, because a lot of people said a lot of stuff meant different things that it didn't. So I would just.
But even at that, like Disney, I watched that conference that Kevin Feige had in the Disney investors meeting, and they were all these three projects are being tied together, and I feel like WandaVision didn't like it. WandaVision is only important to those just because of her, like the stuff she went through. Nothing else in this show was consequential to anything that's going to come after.
But is that not a major consequence? Like that's the thing. It's like I understand what you mean. Like I understand your point is like, well, they're not all dealing with multiverse stuff, but it's a pretty big fucking deal that she's accessed her magical power and she's become the Scarlet Witch. And like I think like rather than looking at it as sequential and looking at it like WandaVision is part 1, Spider-Man is part 2, and Doctor Strange is part 3, I think what we should be looking at it like is WandaVision and Spider-Man are 2 separate projects that both lead into Doctor Strange 2. Rather than rather than them being like WandaVision, then Spider-Man, then Doctor Strange. Because
Yeah,
I
people are
don't
still gonna
think
think about it that way.
I think it's that way. Like I don't I think it has
And like,
major
yeah, and like,
implications for
and this opinion that I have would have been completely thrown out the window if what happened with Evan Peters meant something. Like if his character in that show actually was Quicksilver from the Fox movies, like that actually would have meant something. And instead, he's just a dick joke. Like that's what his name was. Like
I
he's
feel
what
like
was he?
it's very reductionist of what his
Ralph
character.
Boner. No, but like what else? He did he have his powers? No. Like Agatha gave him his powers through that necklace. He Ralph was always this. It made it seem like I kind of thought at the beginning like, okay, Agatha is like clearly, or whatever they were calling her at the beginning of the movie or the show.
Agnes.
She would Agnes was she was there was something off about her, and then and
I
then
thought she was Hydra.
yeah, well,
I
yeah, but
honestly
still,
thought
that
she was
would
a
be
Hydra
something
agent.
that would still make you like suspect. She was suspicious, and then she always talked about this Ralph person or husband Ralph. I'm like, well, who the heck's Ralph? And there's this character that they were implying, or they were teasing, and when Marvel teases, they always mean something. Like that's the thing that like every time they talk about the smallest thing in the movie, it often
Something
more times than
something
not
happens.
becomes something. Like they name drop stuff like Wakanda in Captain America 1, and like now look at what that's become. Then Stephen Strange was name dropped in another movie, and he's one of the big characters that's going to be in Marvel going down the road. They named this Ralph guy. Obviously, there was no one in Marvel that's named Ralph that's of consequence, but it was still something that people were being
They were
like they
paying
were
attention
curious
to it.
about, and then it it was a red herring the entire time. Okay, but then for Evan Peters, Marvel knew what they were doing when they put that character in the show. They knew they wanted to get that emotion out of their fans. They're like, holy crap, look what this is. Like this is the guy that played Quicksilver in the Fox movies. He's got his speed. He's going by Peter. He's connecting with the
But the thing,
twins.
but
Like
he wasn't. What do
they
you mean? He
purposely
wasn't going
put
by
that in
Peter.
the show.
He wasn't going
Or
by
he's
Peter.
Pietro. Sorry,
But he wasn't.
they
But he wasn't Pietro in Marvel and Fox's universe.
no, but like they were writing it as a way that like they made fans think they were this. It was the same character. He was playing the same characters he was in the Fox movies or in the like it was still her brother. So, and I just feel like that was these still like if I were to boil down the show and like and think of all the episodes at once and say what was the biggest moment of that show still that generated the most hype and excitement, it was that ending to that episode where he knocks on the door and it's Evan
Yeah,
Peters.
I agree. I
And
just
Yeah.
think
that
that
became there's nothing that comes of that.
but I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that
I don't
I like, and this is the problem. This is just a major issue I have with just general fan expectations. Is I don't think everything has to have major consequence. And like, for
something
example,
like that should though. Like that's the thing. Like
but here's
that
the thing.
I don't want to say it was an FU to the fans, but like or to
If
to
it
the
kind of
to
felt like it.
it kind of felt like it. Like it and especially just the way that it ended at the way that they wrapped up that character at the end of the show definitely made it feel that way because it
Okay,
was just
but here's the thing. Like here's my argument with that. Is one, going back to Ralph, I genuinely think that everything people say about the build up to this Ralph character is a load of bullshit. Because from my perspective, watching that show, I didn't even question who is Ralph when she would talk about her husband Ralph until I just saw people online being like, who is it? Who is it? Who is it? And it was that typical TV show speculation where everybody just wants to find a meaning in something that might be like completely inconsequential, like completely. And for me, watching it, I was like, okay, it's a character like in any sitcom. It's a character they're referencing that isn't there. And like I didn't think that it was a big deal. And even if they did show up, I wasn't expecting it to be a massive consequential, this is Mephisto, this is Nightmare, this is some big antagonist. Like I didn't really think it was anything until I saw online that people's like, who is it? Who could Ralph be? And it just felt like it was people trying to speculate about everything. And I've never liked that. And then when it comes to Evan Peters, is like, I know you guys have seen the Fox Marvel movies, but I know you're not super big fans of them. Whereas, like, I was a massive fan of those movies. I've rewatched all of those like multiple times. It was clear to me in the first episode, like the reveal was a big deal, and I was like, oh my god! But it was clear to me in the very first episode following that, where you actually see him, that this is not the Fox version of Evan Peters. Like, I was not expecting it to be Quicksilver. His characterization was very different. It was very clear that they were doing something different with this, and I was already kind of like feeling like I don't even know if this is going to be a multiverse thing, because it didn't feel like it was, and it felt more like a meta reference. It felt like, just like a sitcom, it was there for the purpose of the viewers understand who this actor is, so they get a rise out of it, but it has no meaning other than to just be a reference. That's it. It's just
Yeah,
kind
but
of like
like,
how what the lady that plays Robin in How I Met Your Mother, when she was gone for when they were filming Winter Soldier, right? They're like, "Oh, who's this Maria Hill on How I Met Your Mother?" And she says, "That's classified," and that's all they say of it,
right. Or
right?
like, even like when Stan Lee pops up in all these things, there's no real explanation for why there's all these different characters that look like Stan Lee that always show up in every movie. But
It
it's
could be the
just supposed
creator.
to be.
It
But
could
it's
be
supposed to
like
be.
Marvel creator.
But the
They did
reason
that.
it's there is it's a breaking of the fourth wall to say to the fans, like, here's a little tidbit that you'll like. And I agree that they purposely put him in there to suggest that this could be a multiverse story, because they marketed it like that. But that was the intention. The intention was to make you question, are they opening up the multiverse to the Fox franchises, to the Spider-Man franchises? And then their answer was, no, we are not.
Well, they already kind of did with Deadpool, right?
yeah, but
But
what the difference though is that Deadpool's all about breaking the fourth wall, and Ryan
no,
Reynolds
but he went
is
to the
like,
Wolverine world and killed the shitty Deadpool.
yeah,
And
that was a.
I know
Oh,
that's
I
more.
thought you were referring to like Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool 3 being in the MCU, because I think it's going to be.
It is. But we also
So
don't
Yeah.
know. But we don't know if it's Deadpool 3 or if it's just another Deadpool.
it's
Like,
just
we
another
don't know.
Deadpool, yeah.
Like, we don't
Yeah.
know how it's gonna work. Like, I'm sure they're gonna treat it like Deadpool 3, where Deadpool's aware that he's come into a new franchise, but I guarantee everybody
Mhm.
else doesn't know who he is. And that's
Yeah.
gonna be the joke. But I think they purposely question this because, like, think about this hype cycle. Like, think about this speculation cycle. Right now, they've told us Jamie Foxx and Alfred Molina are coming back for Spider-Man 3 as Doc Ock and Electro. And the big question around them is, are they their characters from the originals, or are they new characters? What's going on? There's been rumors about Toby. There's been rumors about Andrew. So Evan Peters showing up was planned. They Marvel is smart. Disney is smart. They knew exactly what they were doing. They wanted us to question, are they opening us up to a giant multiverse with all their film projects? And the response as of WandaVision is, no, we are not. This was not a multiverse theory. It was a reference. Evan Peters was clearly not the same character right away because his name was Pietro, not Peter, because he's Peter in the Fox universe. He was talking about how he was Aaron Taylor Johnson. Like, he was talking about, like, he was the same character that Aaron Taylor Johnson played. He was the MCU version. He just didn't know why he looked like that. And then as we move forward, we realize that, okay, he's actually not even Quicksilver. He's just a random guy. And yeah, the boner joke, whatever, stupid.
That was so cringy. Like,
It's cringy, but I think people like use that to like attack that moment way more than it needs to be. Like, whatever.
Honestly, I didn't think twice about it.
I haven't cringed
But
that
neither
hard
did I.
in a Marvel project since Tony Stank, the Tony Stank cameo or Stanley cameo. I think it was in Civil War. That was pretty cringe.
I mean, it was something that was like, sure, like it might have been funny for some people. It's not funny to other people. But at the end of the day, I don't think, like, I think people reduce the purpose of Evan Peters and like the planning and the marketing of that character in WandaVision. They were just like, oh well, he just ended up being a boner joke. Like, that's not what he was. He
Yeah.
was not a boner joke. He was a marketing strategy to make you question whether Wanda was breaking the universe and opening it up, because we already had the information that she was going to be in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and that Spider-Man was going to be using actors from the other movies. Like, this was all planned. All planned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the multiverse will open up in Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Most likely.
Can I get to what I
Yep.
what I had a bit of a problem with WandaVision before we move on to like what that show did right? Because there was
Yeah,
a lot
sure.
of things that they did right.
It did do right. I loved it.
Yeah, it was great. It was refreshing. But the big thing that I had with that is that the episodes were too dang short.
Yeah.
There was like just right when I was getting into it, like, oh, okay, they're gonna talk about this now, or they're like, for instance, that one moment where towards the end of the second last episode, where like we were doing all the Wanda stuff, and then you hear like the kids crying out, like she goes out to face Agatha, right? And then it just ends. Or like they build up Photon to be like this big amazing character and then proceed to do nothing with her. Right? Like,
Well,
I feel like
she's gonna be built up to be like she was
Yeah,
built up to
this
be
is
a
her
big
intro.
character in Captain Marvel
I
too,
know,
right?
but like, for instance, like she's not magical and stuff. It would have been nice to see like Wanda in like a situation, because she's been like she was in those ruins and couldn't do anything, and then Photon comes in and just figuring her powers up, and it was just added just enough like chaos or like confusion to the situation that like Wanda, who knows her powers a little bit better, could have like broken out or something.
Well, they cut
Or
a
like,
scene that was supposed to be her big scene.
yeah,
That's what
and
happened.
like, wasn't there supposed to be like an extra like hour and a half of content?
No, there
just
wasn't.
like, I heard this was
Yeah,
supposed to be like a 6-hour
some
show.
people were saying there was supposed to be 6 hours, but like
I don't think
and
so.
there was only 4.5. But like I don't think that was real. But I do agree though. Like I felt those episodes were really short, especially when you take into consideration like you cut a few minutes off the beginning because the recaps there and the really long Marvel Studios uh openings there, and then the credits are like crazy long
Yeah,
in that show. So like it's like 7-minute
but
credits or whatever. So like you
well,
take
think about
out
it. Like,
five
in
to
a
five
traditional
to 7
half-hour
minutes of
show,
credit or
well, in a traditional
content.
half-hour show, Matteo, you would have had those moments, except it
8
would have
minutes.
been
8-minute
yeah,
commercials or whatever.
you would have had those commercials and stuff, right? So
But here's the question for both of you: are you
I
saying that the episodes were too short because
I
you
feel
want
like
it?
at the end of the
Wait,
episode, like just as it was getting good, then went to credits.
but that's what I
Just as it
mean.
was
Is
getting
it
like
were
just
the
as I was getting
episode?
into it.
But were the episodes too short then? Because when you got to the climax of an episode, you wanted it to keep going, or were they too short because the story didn't tell enough of the story? Because if you ask me, when you look at it on a whole, that story was not too short.
No, the story wasn't too
everything-
short. It wasn't. It's just that like I feel like
Maybe
like
the
certain
episode
episodes
count was
didn't
too
feel.
high.
Yeah, like if they had like
If they would have cut
one
2
last
episodes
episode,
off, right?
But would you have been able to
like the
tell a
last
story
3
that worked that way? Like the build was the way that the show built was.
Oh yeah, I feel like
designed
you
to
could have
work
done
with
it. You
that
could have
number of-
put like you could have put all the traditional like TV shows that were like for instance, like okay, you had the Dick Van Dyke Show, you had the I Love Lucy thing, you had like all those like shows from the different eras and everything. Those could have all happened in exactly the same length and everything was fine. And then the last 3 episodes could have been Shield's perspective, what the heck is going on, and looking back at those things instead
No,
of
Gino,
placing it in
those
there.
I disagree. I think those honestly in those first few episodes, um, in the first few episodes that didn't have a lot of like whatever present day content, I feel like those episodes were, especially the first episode, I felt like it it needed something, and the present day stuff was that extra story that like to me like the stuff that was happening in the black and white parts of those episodes that was super uninteresting. Like I just wanted to get out of that stuff. Like it was the mystery wasn't enticing enough in that era for me, or for those parts of the story for me. The
I
main
know, but
parts of
they
the
did
story I
it in
wanted
that
to care
style of
about were
television from
the
that time, though. That's the thing. When it was just a simple
eh,
thing like, oh no, we invited the boss over for dinner time and shenanigans ensue.
well, that
Like
whole
And
first
that's,
episode was
but that's what.
basically all Wanda stuff, the black and white like sitcom. The whole episode was like that, and there wasn't really anything like when we watched that first episode, Gino. Like we had the exact same opinion. We're like that was kind of like what,
Yeah,
like
but
we were
that's how
so
TV
excited.
was back. That was what TV was back then, right? And like
but
watching
it's
television
not just about what TV
from
was back
then, what
then.
like with
Like it, yeah, partially that. Like I agree with you, Gino. Like I agree with that, but I think like expecting there to be a lot out of the first episode is having expectations too high, because that episode did what it was supposed to do. It demonstrated this structure of sitcom, which we knew the show was going to be about and everybody was interested
Hmm.
in, and gave us a little seed at the end, which is somebody's
Yeah.
watching this happen. So why is this happening? And that's all it needed to be. And I
Hmm.
think like, and that's why like I disagree with both you. Like I agree that at the end of every episode, I was like, damn, why did it have to end there? Because I want to keep watching. But I don't think the episodes were too short, because I think if they kept going, it would have hurt the pacing of the show. I think every episode ended where it should have ended. And I actually don't think the episodes should have been any longer than they were. I think the pacing was perfect on that show. I think they set it up very well.
I wouldn't say perfect. Nothing is truly perfect, but like I understand like it was good. It was good enough for what it was. I personally thought cuz like I'm used to watching that hour-long show now, and I like that structure where like okay, you have that little bit of extra room to just explain things a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
But like having a 1 hour like Dick Van Dyke section or like between the first 3-4 episodes, like having that being an hour long would have been too much. But when they get to like the modern shows and stuff, come on, like most modern shows are now an hour long.
But again, like that, so if you're having an hour long episode, that means that they're padding out. Like if we're telling the same story, that means either you're destroying the pacing of the
The
story
last
because you would
no
have
the
to like splice together the sitcom parts, or you're adding over exposition. Because I think what works with that show, what made it so interesting and why the theories ran wild, is because it was very slow burn. Like the intention of that show was, this is a mystery, like what the hell is going on. And I think if they gave us too much shield stuff, if they gave us too much explanation, if they made those episodes longer, like I feel like it would have really destroyed the integrity of the show. I think it worked for that kind of show. Like I don't think like something like Falcon and Winter Soldier would work with half an hour episodes, but I think WandaVision benefited from having short episodes.
and in all fairness to WandaVision, like the last 2 or 3 episodes did like they were a little longer. Like I think they were like 45 minutes. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't the half hour they had before. So,
Once they got out
but
of structure.
yeah. So, but yeah, I one thing I did really like about WandaVision. I liked the little like the Easter eggs that they had that were like disguised as commercials, like
Mm-hmm.
Hydra soap or what the heck it was.
I
I
just
really
so
liked the Hydra watch, or was it no the Strucker watch, something like that. the Stark Industries radio was cool. It made like the Iron Man like uh blaster sound when it turned on. I also really liked the like all like the the like the recreations of like the openings to all these popular sitcoms over the years. The
Did they do a Full House episode in reference to her sisters?
I don't think they the one in the 80s wasn't Full House. I know that. It was
That would have been
or was it
funny.
Full House? Honestly, I don't know. Like I know there was Dick Van Dyke, I Love Lucy, Family Ties. Uh, the one in the 80s is blanking on me, and then it was
Malcolm in the Middle.
Malcolm in the Middle.
Malcolm in the
Modern
Middle.
Family.
Little Malcolm. Little
Yeah.
Malcolm.
But the sitcom like and that what the episode though where they did Wanda's origin, like that like
Oh, that was
where
really well
that
done.
was the best episode in the show in my
Yeah,
opinion.
I
Like
agree.
And definitely not filler.
yeah,
Yeah,
stupid
definitely
people
not.
online
People
said
online
it was
said
filler.
filler. I will fight people who don't understand narrative structure. But anyway,
Mhm.
I think the show had a lot of good. I do think the episodic format both helped and hurt it ultimately. It helped it in the sense that it allowed that mystery to kind of like ensue. But that also hurt it because the speculation made expectations a little bit too high. But ultimately,
No
I
matter
do
what,
think
yeah,
like it's made me interested in MCU again.
I'm so happy that a version of Vision is still still around. Like there's a chance that or that he'll come back probably at some capacity. Like it'll probably still like so how do you think like because I've been reading a lot of stuff about other people like what they think about what happened to Vision. Like he put his memories like uh the Vision that she created in the hex put his memories into the put his memories back into the body of actual Vision.
Well, he didn't
Yeah,
put
that was
his
his
memories,
old
like-
body, right? Without the Mind Stone.
but he didn't put
That was-
his memories because remember the Vision and Wanda's Hex did not have his memories. He just unlocked that Vision's program.
Oh, he unlocked. Okay, yeah. So then now he remembers everything that happened in before.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, like,
But
people
do you
are
think he
arguing.
remembers what Hex Vision did? Let's call him that, Hex Vision and Actual Vision.
I don't think so because I don't think that existed in his mind. I also think that even though he has memory, like memories are one thing, as we know from Kingdom Hearts. Memories,
Oh, God.
We got to do that
memories
episode.
and heart are very two different things. And I ultimately think that even though he has the memories of what happened, he'll never be Vision. He'll never be the Vision we knew. It'll be very similar to like, so Gamora still exists, right? But it's not the Gamora that had that relationship with Quill. And
Mhm.
even if she ends up with Quill at some point, it'll never be the same. It's not the
Yeah.
same. It's like with Arrow, right? With Laurel, right? Like
Oh no.
as much as Earth 2 Laurel like progressed, she'll never be the original Laurel. I think that's going to be the same thing with Vision. The
Yeah.
other theory I have with Vision that could be cool is because what happened in Age of Ultron, right, was that Ultron like unlocks Vision's potential and kind of like takes him over, and then he breaks free because of the Mind Stone and like his humanity and stuff. I'm wondering if because this Vision unlocked White Vision's memories and like programming, but that Vision doesn't have the Mind Stone, if Ultron's programming is going to slowly start to take over and they're going to use it as a way to bring Ultron back in the future.
I hope they bring Ultron back in the future. To be honest.
Yeah,
with
he
you,
was
'cause,
done
like,
real dirty.
I think that I think the character was done dirty in Age of Ultron.
Yeah, and
Could have
he's even
been so much better.
he's even a character just bringing in the TV shows. Like he could be the villain of Armor Wars or like Ironheart. Like he doesn't need to be a villain in the movies again.
Yeah.
Um,
And like even with like the actually no, I don't want to. Should I even like delve into like the little bit of comic lore I know about like the twins,
I say go for it.
because like the twins in the comics are like they're like born by like the shard of, like a shard of Mephisto or something like that. But apparently Vision was like a deadbeat dad. So like he doesn't really spend a lot of time with the kids or something like that, from what I know. And like this would be a pretty good like explanation why Vision isn't here anymore. Like why like she had to raise the twins by herself. He's off doing his own thing, coming back, and he'll only be back in crossovers or whatever. So, and the twins are definitely going to be in with Young Avengers if they ever make a Young Avengers project, because like the twins are arguably like the main characters of that story.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure they'll come back.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure we'll see that story in Doctor Strange too, right? Like, I like thinking about
I think Doctor Strange is gonna like honestly, it's gonna start off because Wanda did something.
I think it's
that she doesn't.
I think it's gonna be different actually. I think it's gonna start off with Mordo, because Mordo's hunting wizards and shit, right? I think he's gonna show up
He's
on
gonna find
Wanda's
her?
doorstep and try to kill her, and then that's gonna cause a giant conflict.
They said or Agatha told her that you're stronger than the Sorcerer Supreme, right?
She can
Something like
become,
that?
yeah, she's supposed to
Oh,
be stronger than
yeah. Dang.
which I mean is comic accurate. She's one of the most powerful beings. At least like maybe not like one of the most powerful beings, but she's definitely a very, very powerful character in the Marvel lore. So much so that she has fought like Phoenix, which is regarded to be like arguably like top 3 forces in the Marvel universe, next to like literal like Stan
God.
Lee God and like Franklin Richards, who's just like disgustingly overly powerful. Like Phoenix is one of the most powerful entities, and Wanda's gone toe to toe with Phoenix multiple times.
Yeah. I look forward to see what's gonna go on, because like even before the WandaVision show, like I feel like her character really was a little bit underutilized, and
Yeah,
like
definitely.
yeah, like and it's Elizabeth Olsen, right?
Yep.
Yeah, she does a great job with that character, but like
Most
even
popular
like
Olsen now.
yeah,
I think she's had that title for a while, to be honest with you.
yeah.
Definitely now. If she didn't have it before, she's definitely won it now.
Yeah. Good job. Can't wait to see what happens next with this character.
Yeah, I think overall, I'm just excited for the other shows now, because I'm like, wow, like they did a really good job with this. Her character was done well. Like I love the costume. I love the implications. I have so many questions though, like moving forward, like even with Spider-Man, because if Evan Peters was just
A nobody, basically.
a nobody, then what's going to happen
Or was
with
he a Heartless?
what's going to happen with Jamie Foxx's Electro and Alfred Molina's Doc Ock, right?
Is
Like
Electro going to be blue?
he's not. He already said he's not blue. But like, are they from their universes, or are they just again just references? They're Marvel's basically just honoring like the past and being like, we're gonna have these characters play.
Are they just teasing
the
us?
same characters within this universe, right? Like it's not a multiverse thing.
Or
Well, that's the
we were
thing,
just
like, it
really
comes
happy with
out-
that actor's performance. It honestly just could be that, like they're just really happy with the performance of the actor, and they're like, hey, you know what, you were either
Yeah.
done dirty or
Just like they do with
in
JJ,
Jamie
right?
Foxx's case, right? He was done dirty, so they given him a redo potentially. Like, but I think with J. Jonah Jameson, it's different, to be honest with you. Like,
But it was different, like in the context of when they showed him, because we are like, oh yeah, they're just using him again. But that's what I mean is like they could be doing that with these guys too. We're just assuming it's multiverse.
with J. Jonah, I don't think it's multiverse. I think it's just because he is so J.K. Simmons is just so good as that character. Such a good job. He's super iconic. Like
No, I
that, I
agree. No,
think.
I 100% agree with you. That's what I said. I'd like
Oh, okay. I
he's not
misunderstood then.
multiverse. No, he is
Yeah.
not multiverse. But that's what I'm saying is like that could be same with Jamie Foxx and Alfred Molina. Like they might not be multiverse characters. They might just be playing the Electro and Doc Ock of this
Yeah.
universe.
I'm just, regardless of what it is, I'm gonna hardcore temper my expectations for Spider-Man now. Like I have a
Hey, that's
gut
not
feeling
necessarily
that
a bad idea,
it's not gonna
right?
be what we think it is, because like all the speculation in when WandaVision was wrong. So like all the speculation in Spider-Man could be wrong too. So it's just,
Yeah.
I
But
think
yeah, like
it's better
hyping things
just to,
up though, Matteo. Like
well,
But at the same
I don't
time,
know.
like
I like hype culture
look at
is
people, right? And we're spending more time on our devices and on the internet now than we normally would in a year, because of the situation going on in the world. So, and like there hasn't been a there hasn't been an MCU project since Spider-Man Far From Home. So it's been a really long time, and people are itching for these stories to continue. So like that's why I think like it's not it that's why I feel like saying, oh, people shouldn't listen to speculation stuff. It's like that definitely contributes to the way people like think of these shows and these movies. Like
for sure.
it's something that shouldn't just be discounted. Like that's and it's just that my viewpoint, unfortunately, of WandaVision is, oh, it's going to be slightly hindered by that. Like it's the first thing. Like I said, it was an impossible task for it to live up to expectations, just because it's been so dang long since there's been anything exciting to watch, really. So, but
But here's the
it's
question for you, like for you guys, because I assume like a lot of this speculation when we're talking about like WandaVision or the context of like Spider-Man is about multiverse. And like I know a lot of people were disappointed with Evan Peters being Ralph Boner and not being Maximoff
Ralph.
Pietro from
boner.
Fox, but like genuinely, is it a bad thing that they're not pulling this multiverse shit? Because like as much as part of me was like, it would be so cool if we could have the Fox X-Men and the Raimi Spider-Man stuff. Part of me was like, oh, it'd be so cool. Like what a big concept. The other part of me was like, if they open that can of worms, this narratively, this world building is fucked. And part of me is like, once I found out, like once it was just like, oh, he's just some dude. I was kind of like, probably for the best. Like honestly, probably for
Like
the best
slight
that they're not
relieved.
bringing in the Fox X-Men, because the thing is, once they open that can of worms, people are gonna just bitch all the time. Like if Evan Peters is in here, then they don't bring back Hugh Jackman, people are upset. They don't bring back Michael Fassbender, people are upset. They don't bring back Patrick Stewart, people are upset. They don't bring back Sophie Turner, they don't bring back this person, that person, this person. And it's just like I almost want them, like as much as I know they're doing multiverse, because we know they're doing it in Doctor Strange, I hope that multiverse isn't we are jumping into the universes of the non MCU Marvel projects. I almost just hope Spider-Man is the same thing. Spider-Man is just
Yeah.
Alfred Molina and Electro, whether they're from a different universe or not, are not from the Amazing Spider-Man and the Raimi Spider-Man universe. They're just from an alternate universe that's in the MCU, or they're from the MCU universe. Like
Yeah.
I don't want them to open it personally.
I kind of I do I do agree with you, just because like you said, like I don't have that attachment to the Fox universe or to the Raimi Spider-Man movies, because like or the Amazing Spider-Man. Yeah, I think the Amazing Spider-Man was, the first one was really 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 good, and that was probably the best Spider-Man movie to be out, in my opinion. That was the best Spider-Man movie before Homecoming. But like I don't care about, like I don't think Spider-Man 1 and 2 have aged well at all, and I really don't care if I see those characters again. And like half of the Fox
I want
movies are, like X-Men movies, are not good, and why would we want to see them again? It was just, but like, it was just the excitement, like the fact that a multiverse can exist is a way that these movie studios, and I'll put DC in here too, is it's a way for them to like pay homage to stuff that's come before, or fix something that's like a recasting of a character, or just a slight change they want to make in the universe to like modernize it or whatever. That was the exciting thing about Marvel saying that they were going to do a multiverse, is that like, and but now that you've said that with you know, I would honestly, I like those movies, like we can say that the Marvel Cinematic Universe now is good. It's got the vision of Kevin Feige behind it. I would want to see what he does with a clean slate with the multiverse, like creating an Earth where, like, a fun one I read was like they should have an Earth of like people were uh that were like that the actors that almost got cast as these characters are playing these characters now, like where like John Krasinski's Captain America or Tom Cruise's Iron Man, like, and see like how they would act, and like, or uh is the Marvel What If show gonna be uh like considered in the multiverse? Like, do we know anything about that?
Yeah, that's
Like,
multiverse.
yeah, so like how they're exploring that, like those storylines, that's more enticing to me than bringing back uh like these
Tony Stark.
arguably like not
Like,
good these characters from arguably not good movies from like the 90s and the 2000s, if that makes
hey,
sense.
I want
Yep.
Tobey Maguire to come back and say it's pizza time.
I want Tobey
Just walking away.
Maguire to come back and stand next to Tom Holland so that all of those people who are still living in the past can see what it's like for the real Spider-Man to stand next to a poser. The real Spider-Man being Tom Holland, because Tobey Maguire is an awful Spider-Man.
Up and away, web.
He's a good Peter.
Fly.
Again, I will argue.
I
Tobey
think he said
Maguire,
Shazam at one point too.
great Peter
What?
Parker, terrible Spider-Man, and Andrew Garfield's the opposite. Great Spider-Man, not a good Peter Parker, and Tom Holland's the best of both. Can't fight math.
Well, do you guys want to move on from
don't think
WandaVision now?
I don't even think we should move on, to be honest. We've been talking for an hour and 15 minutes. And I think if we start talking about all the other MCU
I think this deserves a part 2.
Yeah,
I think
if we start talking about all the other MCU projects, this is just going to end up being a 2.5-hour episode. And so I think like we can call this a WandaVision episode. Like, I think we're okay.
We can do a part. Yeah,
and we'll just do another MCU one in the future. Maybe Riley can join us.
Yeah, I want to talk Loki hype.
And we'll talk about other projects. Maybe what we can do is maybe we can revisit this when Falcon and Winter Soldier ends. And then that episode will become us just talking about Falcon and Winter Soldier. And then we'll push it even further till after Black Widow, when inevitably we won't have much to talk about.
Well, Loki's coming out too around that time, so just we'll never talk about our opinions of the MCU other than the
after Black
the
Widow
current projects.
After Black, let's be real. We're not gonna have much to talk about after Black Widow. We're not gonna have much to talk about.
Well,
not hating on Black Widow. I love Black Widow as a character. I love Scarlett Johansson. I just can't imagine that movie will have much in terms of story implication moving forward.
Yeah, I can't really see it either. But once again, like,
I will happily. You guys will.
There could be a big surprise there that like rocks the universe, similar to how Winter Soldier did. Maybe not on the same scale.
Do you know what people think it is?
When they're least, maybe, I don't know.
So there's this, like, some people think what's going to happen is in that story you're going to find out that that Black Widow was actually the Russians' version of her, Natasha, was actually the Russians' version of Captain America, and she received a super soldier serum and she didn't realize it. And then the post-credit scene of that movie is going to be her like dead at the bottom of the thing, and then she wakes up because her healing kicks in.
It just took like forever to
Interesting.
activate.
Yeah, it just took a while to. That's what people think it's gonna be. Is they're gonna like.
That's a long
essentially-
time. That'd take a
Well,
long
no,
time for
it
that
wouldn't
serum to kick in.
No, it wouldn't be a long time. Like the implication
That's-
would be it happened like fairly quickly. Because like realistically, how long did Hawkeye stay there? Right, he was in a rush. Like they had to save the universe. He probably like took the stone and
No,
left.
are you saying like when did she get injected with the serum? Like pre Iron Man 2? Like
Okay, let's not get into this. Let's
We
save
don't
it for
know.
later.
Like the
oh, okay.
theory is like like she's always had it.
I see,
know?
I see.
You know,
Mhm.
Yep.
and that's why she's so like capable and like has like
Oh, so she's yeah.
like
I
peak
think I like to
human
think
condition.
because she put in the hard work and
I do too.
and did all that stuff, not some kind of like.
I agree.
So like she,
I agree.
like
I'm just saying like for the purpose of bringing her back, you know.
yeah.
Could be interesting. Anyway, we'll
Well
wrap up.
done.
Thank you for tuning into our WandaVision impressions. I think ultimately all three of us came away from that show excited about the future. We all had differing opinions on different layers of it, but I think we all overall enjoyed it.
Yeah,
we're excited for what comes next. Look
Stay
forward.
tuned for part 2.
Stay tuned for I won't even call it part 2, but just stay tuned for more future MCU episodes. Stay tuned for I'm sure we'll have a DCEU episode following Zack Snyder's Justice League coming up.
I will make that happen. I will make it happen.
Oh, I'm down to
4
talk
other
about it, even if
DC
it's just the
fans
two of
that
us.
are here that aren't just or that care about DC. I got your back.
Yep.
And just a reminder, if you enjoyed our podcast today, whether you're listening to it on Spotify or YouTube, you know, just leave a comment, give us a like, subscribe. As
Tell
always,
your friends.
Yeah, as always, if you are a Gino and Smash supporter, get out. We don't want you here. We don't like you.
Unless it's
we
me,
despise
actually
you.
me in Smash.
Yeah, unless it's Gino, from the Hub World in Smash.
Gino with an eye.
In which case, that's okay. But Gino from Super Mario and the 7 Stars, get out. You're not welcome. Thank you for listening. We will connect with you again soon. And have a lovely March. See you later.
Lovely March. Really? That's how we're ending it?
Fine. Have a bad March. I hope you're waiting for the next. I hope that these next 2 weeks waiting for Falcon and the Winter Soldier are the most unbearable times of your life. Farewell.